Lesung.
Hello, my name is Emilia De Luca and you're listening to the podcast Meine Lesung. My guest today is author Sandra Rehle. Hi Sandra, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello Emilia, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so glad being here, but I must admit that I'm a little bit nervous as it is my first podcast talking in English all the time. So here we go. My name is Sandra Rehle and I am the author of the Gracewood Hall book series, which are romantic novels that make you feeling good and relaxed.
From which book will you be reading to us?
Today I will read from Winter Magic at Gracewood Hall, which is my Christmas novel and also the first novel of the book series. So I read first of all the blurb so that you know what we are talking about. This summer, a cheerful lifestyle blogger is done with men. After having her last relationship end in disaster, all she wants is to focus on her career. That's why she's thrilled to have the Bedford family invite her to spend Christmas at Gracewood Hall, an English mansion. The picturesque manor will be a future hotspot for romantic weddings, and Liz will write about it in her blog. Shortly after getting there, she meets the attractive but reserved Maxwell Thompson, a family friend. After a cruel stroke of fate, Max is not interested in love or romance anymore. They both spend some wonderful days at Gracewood Hall. While being on a trip on horseback, the two get closer. Will they manage to leave the ghosts of the past behind? So we start at the very first beginning. Chapter 1, December 21st. Darling, there you are. Why didn't you tell us you had landed? We could have come to pick you up. Liz had just gotten out of the taxi when a set of double doors opened and Nigel stepped out. With a big smile on his face, he hugged Liz and then held her at an arm's length. You look great, Liz grinned. Your velvet slippers are adorable, aristocratic host through and through. As usual, Nigel was dressed in a wild mix of patterns. He had his way of pulling off a modern dandy look. You don't even know how to spell style. He moved his index finger reprovingly and hugged her once more. When he finally paid the taxi driver and took her luggage, Liz got the chance to admire the manor. Of course, she had looked at the pictures of Gracewood Hall on the internet, but I didn't live up to the actual size and glory of the mansion. The classicist sandstone glistened in a warm gold in the sallow winter sunlight. The color was taken on the ornamented Advent wreaths on the doors. Together with the portal of columns, it made the manor look like a castle out of a fairy tale. She made a note to herself that they had to take new and better pictures for the website. Oh my God, it's so wonderful. Nigel put an arm around her shoulders. Darling, I'm so glad you're here. You're sticking to what you promised on the beach of Bali. Liz shot him a playful look of reproach. Please, I wouldn't miss the opportunity of celebrating Christmas with you. They went inside together and Liz went on. Not to mention getting to cook for you. Nigel smiled sheepishly. Sure, we are very excited about that. In the vestibule with a coach track that could take on the coats of an entire army, Nigel handed the luggage over to a young man with black hair, freckles, and enchanting jug ears. Liz, may I introduce you to Matthew Gardner? He is helping around the house and the garden, and he is taking care of the horses. Hello, nice to meet you. Liz held out a hand to him. So if I want to have a cupboard moved around the room, I have to get you? Sure, stable lad, caretaker, electrician, waiter. So whatever you need, I'm your man. He smiled an open smile, and she instantly knew that he had found a friend for life. As Nigel instructed Matthew what to do, she looked around the grand entrance hall. The floor was laid by sandstone tiles, which were illuminated by the big glass dome. The tiles were shining a honey yellow, and the hall seemed much more warm than it actually was. Underneath the staircase, a big wing door promised a very special room to be hidden behind it. When Liz realized that her mouth was hanging open, she closed it self-consciously. She hoped that no one had seen her gawking. With a smile on her face, she turned to Nigel, who was leading her to the left into the salon. Look who I found. She was just about to sneak in. Nigel Bedford. Before Liz could go on, Arthur walked over to her. Honey, it's so nice to have you here. Why didn't you say you had landed? We could have come to pick you up. He said the exact same thing as his life partner before. I didn't want you to bother. I'm a grown-up, you know. Hogwash. Next time you let us know. Arthur linked her arms with her. Come on, I'll show you your room. You can freshen up if you want. We'll be waiting for you with a cup of tea. 15 minutes later, there was no trace left of her journey here. She combined her favorite black jeans with a grey pullover made of cashmere and boots. With her camera in her hand, she made her way to the salon and was already looking forward to a hot cup of tea. At the foot of the stairs, Nigel was talking with an elderly woman. Liz, there you are. I want to introduce you to Mrs. Cuthbert. Mrs. Cuthbert is the good fairy of the house. She takes care of all the chores and pampers us with the nicest meals. Mildred Cuthbert looked at Liz expectantly. I hear you want to cook for us, she remarked coldly. Liz immediately knew she just met one of the challenges of making the manor more popular. She decided not to be afraid and smiled radiantly at the housekeeper. Of course, I want to ask your permission first, Mrs. Cuthbert. It is your kitchen. But I did hope I might get some tips from the cook of the house. Liz leaned over to Mrs. Cuthbert. Nigel and Arthur told me so much about you and your cooking when we were on vacation together. My mouth started to water every time they talked about you. Is that so? Mrs. Cuthbert seemed thrilled at the unexpected compliment. Well, come join me in the kitchen after breakfast tomorrow, then we can get over it all. Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbert. I'm very much looking forward to it. Liz and Nigel looked after Mrs. Cuthbert, who seemed to happily return to the kitchen. Nigel reached for Liz's arm and squeezed it gently. I knew you would win her over in seconds. Are you going to be long? Nigel warned a little later. The pepper grass looks dry already. Baby, she's only doing her job. That's why we've invited her here. Well, among other reasons. Arthur added with a look at Liz. In Bali, it was only her food that got cold. Nigel went on complaining. Liz wasn't bothered by what was going around her. She only moved the étagère with the delicious-looking food a tiny bit to the left. Something was still missing from the picture being perfect. She looked around. Suddenly, she realized that someone was sitting by the window, reading. He had a stunning profile. His dark hair was a little too long because the strands kept falling down in front of his face. Quickly, Liz held up the camera and took a few shots of the stranger before walking up to him. Excuse me, Liz tipped his shoulder. May I? She asked and took the book from his hands before waiting for permission. She set the book down next to a steaming cup of tea, with the étagère in the background. It was everything Liz would call English country life. Finally, she took a picture. A measuring glance at the small screen made her shout a happy, perfect, into the room. Nigel went for the sandwiches right away. Stop, I still need. She took her cell out of her pocket and took a few more pictures. Afterward, Liz reached for the open book and gave it back to its owner. Thank you so much, and I apologize for being bold. When I work, sometimes this is all I see. My name is... I noticed. He eyed her from head to toe with a look in his eyes that seemed like a thunderstorm. Without saying another word, he got up and walked over to the others. Well, this will be fun, Liz thought. I won't tell you my name then, no matter how good-looking you are. With a shrug, she sat down next to Nigel, who had put some food on his plate so quickly he might fear that Liz wanted to take even more photos. There you go, darling. Arthur handed her a cup of tea. What would you like to try first? I'd like a sandwich with egg and one with cucumber, please. When she looked at the small sandwiches on her plate, she debated whether she could discreetly reach for her camera. The small delicacies looked tempting. She wanted her followers not to miss out on them. "We haven't introduced two of you yet," Nigel said in between two bites and got Liz back to reality. "Lizzie, this quiet fellow is Maxwell Thompson, an old family friend. Max, this is Liz Sommer. We've already told you about her. She has a very popular lifestyle blog and she will share her experience at Gracewood Hall to make it more famous." Nigel looked like he was in awe. "On top of that, she will cook a traditional German Christmas dinner for us." He seemed to already be tasting it in his mouth. "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." She held her hand out to him. Max only nodded and focused on his cup of tea. Quickly, she pulled her hand back. "Well, not all the Britons seemed exceptionally nice." "We are very glad you're here," Arthur hurried to say. "Me too. I've always wanted to spend Christmas in England," Liz explained exuberantly. Max gave a dismissive nod. "Maxwell," Nigel scolded him. "Don't be like that. It's no one's fault you don't like Christmas." "You don't like Christmas? Are you the Grinch?" As soon as the words had slipped from Liz's mouth, her pupils dilated with shock. Max pulled his eyebrows together. "Do I look like the Grinch?" he replied. "Well," Liz could stop herself from saying because he already went on. "No, I'm not particularly fond of Christmas. It's all about consumption, too much high expectations that never can be met. I agree with you on the high expectations, and I have long gotten rid of the pressure of buying gifts. But Christmas is about so much more." Maxwell rolled his eyes and commented sarcastically, "How could I forget about love?" Liz grinned at Max. "Go on, mock it. But love, not the kind you find in cliché Hollywood movies, is the strongest force in the universe. Love is the strongest and most beautiful thing. If you trust in love, it will, anywhere, at any time, get the best for you, even though it might not seem like it at the moment." Liz nodded as if to reassure herself. "Yes, especially in those moments. You just have to decide to trust it." Max was almost blinded by her smile and he couldn't find the right words to say. What was he supposed to say to that? Annoyed, he turned away. He'd known it would be a bad idea to spend Christmas at Gracewood Hall. The blogger girl was getting on his nerves already with all the jibber-jabber about a cozy world.
Do you know all of your characters by heart?
Almost, because I know many for so long. I wrote Winter Magic, or better, Winterzauber, which is the German title of the book, in 2018. Therefore, some of the characters join me in my writer's life for a couple of years. So, Liz, Max, Arthur, and Nigel.
Would you tell us something about the setting of your book? Is there one, or are there a number of different locations?
In Winter Magic, everything happens at Gracewood Hall. This is a classicist manor in Great Britain. To be precise, it is located in Kent, near Canterbury, southeast of London. As Gracewood Hall came in my mind and I began to create the storyline, I was curious if there in Great Britain do exist such manors. I wanted to know if it is realistic, and then I found out that there's really a similar house. And do you know what is special about this house?
No. What?
Believe it or not, Jane Austen stayed there several times because a relative of her lived there. It calls Goodnestone Park Gardens. I was so surprised. Should I read the second part now? It is the next day. Refreshed and full of energy, Liz walked down the stairs to the hall where she ran into Mrs. Cuthbert, who was carrying a full tray. Good morning, Mrs. Cuthbert. Wait, I help you. Liz reached for the heavy teapot and smiled at the housekeeper. Good morning, and thank you. Did you sleep well? Mrs. Cuthbert asked as they both walked into the breakfast room to lay the table. I slept very well. Oh, it seems to be a dry day. Liz looked out of the window. I hope so. Oh, the sunrise is stunning, don't you think? Liz admired the many red and pink colors and gave a light sigh. Seeing this, I understand how small we and our problems are. My God, Mrs. Cuthbert called out. My porridge! She hurried into the kitchen and Liz followed her with the empty tray. In the kitchen, the two women worked in silence on getting the delicacies for breakfast on a tray and carried them over to the breakfast room. There were handmade jam, golden honey, butter, creamy cheese, and aromatic ham, everything from local farmers. Eggs and bacon were still in the pan on the stove and waited to be filled into a bowl with warm-keeping function. Mrs. Cuthbert, who is supposed to eat all this? Liz giggled. Please tell me there's some food left for you and your busy partners. Mrs. Cuthbert smirked and got freshly baked buns out of the oven. Darling, you will see that life in the countryside makes hungry, and a few hours are going to pass before afternoon tea. So you think I'm supposed to eat ahead? Liz grinned. Or you put some scones in your bag when no one's looking, Max said, who had entered without them noticing. Mrs. Cuthbert gets very angry if mice are running around the place just getting stuff. Maxwell! Mrs. Cuthbert put a hand to her chest. Don't sneak in on me like that. My heart will give out. Max bowed deep. I kindly ask for your forgiveness. You bad boy. Mrs. Cuthbert tried to hide her smile. You could help us instead. Anything to oblige, he said in a serious tone, took the heaviest tray and was already out of the kitchen. Mrs. Cuthbert gave a low sigh. Oh, it's so good to see the boy smile again. She took a tray herself and went after him. Liz agreed, but sadly it was not the right time to find out what had taken the smile from Max. So she reached for the basket of buns and followed the other two. In the hall, she ran into Nigel and Arthur. Good morning, you two, she greeted them happily. Good morning, Lizzie. I probably don't have to ask if you slept well, Arthur replied just as happily. Nigel only murmured, morning, and slowly made his way to the breakfast room, where he poured himself a cup of tea first. His usual joyfulness were nowhere to be seen this morning. Liz and Arthur smiled at each other conspirationally and went to sit at the table with a loud squeak of their chairs. Max couldn't hold back either and stirred in his cup of tea, extra loudly. I know what you guys are doing, Nigel complained. What are we doing? Liz asked innocently. Nigel lifted the cup to his lips and mumbled something that sounded like horrible people. Arthur, Max, and Liz gave a loud laugh. Nigel lowered his head a little bit more. He looked like he wanted to drown up in his cup. After a while, everyone concentrated on their plates that were filled with delicious food. For a few minutes, all that was to be heard was the clatter of the cutlery and the clicking of Liz's cell phone camera. Like every morning, she shared her breakfast with the digital world. Finally, Nigel resurfaced from behind his cup and reached for a bun. Arthur smiled a kind smile at him before turning to Liz. Oh, Lizzie, I'm sorry, but we have to postpone our tour of the garden to the afternoon or tomorrow. Nigel and I have to go to the university in the city. Our professor called earlier and he wants to see us. I don't know what's about, he explained. No problem, Liz said. I have to talk to Mrs. Cuthbert anyway, and I have to get a blog post ready. I can walk around on my own. I could show you around. Max was surprised at himself when the other left his lips. The look of shock was engraved on his face. Liz looked stunned. Oh, thanks, but you really don't have to. She thought about how to decline his offer without making it sound weird or mean. But she hadn't planned for Nigel to interfere. That's a terrific idea, Max, he said gleefully. Maxwell knows the garden better than we do. If I remember correctly, he knows every hiding place. Nigel grinned sheepishly. Oh, how great to see you awake. Max answered and smirked. Then he faced Liz and said, I would love to show you and your camera around. Do you know how to ride on horseback? Liz smiled hesitantly. She didn't know what to make of his offer, so she decided to go for a neutral and friendly tone. Thanks, that's nice of you. I had a few lessons as a teenager, but I haven't been on horseback in ages. That's no problem, Nigel barked in again. You just take Queenie, she's very calm. And Max is a wonderful horseman. Underneath the table, Arthur kicked Nigel and he received a murdering glance from Max across the table. But Nigel wouldn't shut up. On the contrary, he seemed content with himself and didn't even seem to register this objection. She didn't have any riding clothes with her. We have enough. Something will fit you, I'm sure. I get the clothes while you're talking to Mrs. Cuthbert and take them to your room. Maxwell can get the horses ready in the meantime. Liz had to smile and saluted him. Yes, sir. Maxwell concentrated on his teacup and asked himself why he had offered to show her around in the first place. He wanted to spend his free time in peace and alone. This wouldn't be possible with Miss Sunshine by his side.
That was wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
How long did it take you to write your book?
It depends on how the circumstances are. I think everybody can relate. You should know I'm a mom of 2 school kids and my husband works a lot. So my writing time is in the morning when everybody is in school or office. Since COVID-19, nearly everything has changed. So, well, let me say this. My first book was published in October 2018, and now I've published 3 more. And the 5th one will hopefully be ready when this podcast is published. But I try not to push me too much, as this year was hard enough for everyone.
Where do you usually write? Do you have a specific room?
Most of the time I write in our living room, sitting on the couch, drinking coffee and snacking all the time, like a cliche, I know. Sometimes, when I'm really inspired, I write in the afternoon as well. It can also happen that I write at the weekends or on vacation. For example, one day in summer, I took my notebook and went into the woods. There I was, sitting on a tree trunk, typing. I was deeply inspired and wanted to finish the scene, but everyone from my family around me disrupted me all the time.
What is your solution for writer's block?
I had one at the end of the summer. It wasn't funny, you can trust me. I was thinking all the time for what reason I couldn't write. And actually, it was a mixture of stress and pressure I made by myself and a problem in the storyline. As I recognized this, I was able to solve the problems or better create solutions. So I changed the storyline till everything fits, and at the same time I took off the pressure I made by myself to hurry up.
What inspired you to become an author?
I love stories since ever. My mom always told that I have had books instead of cuddly toys in my bed when I was a little child. So I told all people inside and outside the family for a long time, one day I will write a book. And then, many years ago, there was a kind of professional gap, and I told my husband, I think I have to write my book now, otherwise I won't do it at all. And he said, okay, just do it. And here it is, Winter Magic at Gracewood Hall.
How would you describe yourself?
Oh, Emilia, you are asking hard questions. I'm a person with a positive mindset. I trust in life. Surely, sometimes I struggle as well as any other human being. But most of the time, I'm feeling blessed and grateful for all the opportunities I have.
What makes a book worth reading to you?
Oh, an easy question. When it touches my heart. Exactly.
Where can we find you on social media?
You can connect me on Instagram and Facebook. There you can find me under Sandra Rehle. Rehle spells Rehle. Then I have a tiny YouTube channel, and on Pinterest are mood boards for every book.
Where is your book available?
Winter Magic at Gracewood Hall is available as paperback and Kindle. If you are located in the US, you can also order the paperback at your local bookstore. Or you suggest Winter Magic to your local library. That's another possibility.
What do you wish for concerning your readers?
My greatest wish is that my readers have a wonderful time while reading, or to say so, staying at Gracewood Hall. My vision is to tell a new kind of romantic stories in which both the woman and the man are really partners. Nobody has to be saved. And if so, the two save each other. And when I have to wish a wish for myself, I would like to hear about you. What do you think about the book? Do you like it? Tell the other people if you like it. That would be great.
Thank you so much for being my guest today. I hope to hear and read from you soon.
Bye, Emilia. Thanks for having me. It was such a pleasure. And thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Until next time, best wishes, Emilia.
Wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat, abonniere den Podcast und über eine Bewertung würden wir uns sehr freuen. Meine Lesung.